everybody. Today is Wednesday. We've got a special guest for you today, Alexa.
Hi.
There you are.
How's
How
it
are you
going?
today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Good. I thought I'd give everybody a little view of outside today.
Where are you at?
I'm in northern Wisconsin. It was snowing this morning.
Oh, yes. It's quite different than the 78-degree weather here in South Carolina.
Yeah. Cool. I was looking up some of your stuff online, and how many books have you written?
It depends on if you count the solo and co-authored. I think I'm at 9 of books that my name are on the byline.
Nice.
And then I'm writing 3 right now. Just
3 books in process right this minute.
3 and a journal that we're working on for grieving moms. So lots of fun stuff happening.
Lots of good stuff. You're very busy. So I'm glad you could make it today. I've been waiting for this ever since I met you. Can you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell everybody how you got into writing, because I've noticed you've got a couple different publishing companies.
I was a technical writer through my career. I wrote intel briefings and counterterrorism plans and strategies and things like that in the military and in Homeland Security. So that was a very interesting life, if you like to write, I suppose. Very different than what I write on now. And when I decided to leave my career, I'm not even going to get into all the details, but basically we had an infant daughter pass away at 2 days old. And I started blogging at that point in time to deal with the grief and the loss and the sadness and the anger and all the emotions that came up around losing a baby. And it just kind of evolved from there. Like, I really enjoyed writing. I started writing Sunshine After the Storm, a survival guide for the grieving mother, and I really just enjoyed the process of learning self-publishing and how to do it. So I started doing more books, and then people started coming to me and asking how I was doing it. So I started helping other people with their books as well. And in the beginning, we had a lot of other mothers who were writing stories of grief and loss and what they've gotten from it. So it just kind of evolved from there. But writing to heal has always been a big part of my platform and what we're talking about. And writing can be such a tremendous tool for helping people across a whole bunch of different ways. It doesn't just have to be a book.
I noticed some of your books they're prompts for how to get writing. What are some of those prompts that you see most over time to be most helpful for people in their writing process, with the aim of writing to heal?
Yeah, okay, with the aim of writing to heal. So it really depends on where you are and how much trauma is around the event. Some people like to sit down and just write their story. Some people like to just sit down and write the whole, everything that happened. Some people like to write letters to their lost loved one. Some people write forgiveness letters or acceptance letters. Some people write poems. Some people just journal every day. A lot of people will try to do gratitude journaling, because writing from a place of hope and love and gratitude can help pull you out of grief. So, it really depends on the person and how much for me, I started blogging. And the reason that I chose blogging was because I wanted to share my emotions with the world. I wanted to, because I was very angry. We had some medical things that happened that things could have been different, I suppose we should say. So I had a lot of anger towards the medical community. I had a lot of, she was an identical twin. So we had one baby still in the NICU for 3 months, and one baby had passed away. So we were, there were just so many emotions of trying to, keep another baby alive and all of those things. So for me, blogging was a place. I created a pseudonym. My daughter's name was Catherine Bigwarfe, so I decided to become Cat Biggie, and I took to the internet basically to share what I was learning about twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, share what I was learning about life in the NICU, share about grief and loss, share about all of those things. For me, it just, that release, even though I was doing it under a name that nobody knew, and even though 5 people might see my blog an entire month, like, for me, it was just a a nice place to go to release and to feel like it was put out there in the world. Some people don't want to be put out there, so journaling is a lot better. And I would encourage people, if there's anger at a specific person, to not put that out on the blog because
No identifying information, please.
right, because you can be very, very, very hurt by people in a time of loss, and sometimes things are said and done that after some time in healing don't seem as bad or as painful or whatever. So I encourage people not to put out their hurt about other people in a situation publicly. But other
Yes.
than that, there's very few rules.
Yeah. Last week, we actually, in preparation for today and Writing to Heal, we did an exercise on here about letter writing. It's based off of the empty chair Gestalt therapy exercise. So that's a really good way, because you don't actually send the letters, but that's a really good
Right.
way to start processing the anger towards specific people and moving through that healing journey. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
you're going to put it out on a blog, probably keep the names out.
right. Well,
Good words of wisdom.
I became certified as a grief recovery specialist, and the book that they have walks you through the different phases of coming to acceptance, I suppose, with a loss of many different types. And at the very end, like, you do different exercises to write different timelines and different pieces of the story. And then at the very end, you do go through and you take it all together and you write a big a big letter saying goodbye, basically, to that loss.
Yeah.
And I found that to be such a tremendously healing exercise. And yes, you never want, especially if because grief and trauma is not always the loss of a person, like in death. Sometimes it's the loss of a marriage or the loss of a friendship or even the loss of a job. So we grieve. This whole last year has been a bunch of grief. Grief can come from many different ways. So sometimes you might be saying goodbye to someone or something who still exists in your life, and you never want them to come across that letter. So
Yeah.
burning is a good exercise as well. Writing and then burning. Write it, burn it.
Really release it. There's something when you go from the thoughts and emotions in your mind to putting them out in a tangible form, isn't
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
And then to literally watch it go up in smoke and to release it.
Oh, it's very powerful. I
Yeah.
love burning. I love burning letters, actually. Writing what's on my heart and then burning it in a very ceremonious way in a little bonfire in my backyard. It's very powerful.
When you're writing to heal, do you tend to do it on the computer or do you tend to do it on paper?
Well, when I was blogging, obviously it was on the computer, but it's very interesting. There are actually there's scientific research behind the fact that there is something different that happens in your brain when you use your hand to write. That brain to hand connection, it actually really helps release emotions in a way that typing on a computer does not. So I highly encourage people to get a journal or a piece of paper. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can write on whatever you want to. But yeah, if you're using writing as a healing tool, I highly recommend handwriting, whatever it is that you're doing. And you know what? I've been getting really into art lately, as well as another way to express it, and painting. Like, I think that anything that helps you take what you're feeling in your mind and put it on paper, whether it's through drawing it or writing it or coloring it, can be tremendously healing.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
You're
That's
an
what I
art
do.
therapist, aren't you?
Yep, I'm an art therapist. So that's awesome. It's really cool to see how your journey, as hard as it was that you had to start that journey, the places it's taken you, from writing out your thoughts, all those strong emotions. Goodness, you were right in the middle of it, watching one baby try to fight for survival and then grieve in the loss of the other one. How do you, like, which direction do you go? And then to hear your story, like, one thing led to another. It led to the blog, it led to writing, it led to helping other people, it led to publishing companies. Now it's leading you into art. Just a really cool.
Well, I'm not going to lead anybody through art, but but it's something that I will do just as another way. The other thing I've been getting really into lately is tapping, EFT.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very open to exploring different modalities for bringing forth our emotions. I think that healing is multifaceted. I think that grief is multifaceted, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that writing is one way. And for me, it was the major way. I often really think that writing like saved me
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point where I turned to that as something to do and a way to engage myself and a way to interact with others who were grieving and to provide resources for them in a way that if I hadn't been doing that at the time, I think I would have been completely lost.
Mm.
I had three really small kids, one who was medically very fragile. I mean, my kids were 4, 2, and a baby. And of course, the baby was very medically fragile for her first year or two. And I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't had some kind of outlet that I could turn to that was just for me.
It's important to have those outlets just for ourselves, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it is.
Very important.
I remember at one point we were talking and you were mentioning maybe a little bit of an exercise or something that you wanted to share with people as they're working on their writing.
I encourage just like free writing. When you have something that you're working through, just sitting down with your pen and paper and just going forward and just getting everything out that's on your mind. And for me, when I do something like that, if I'm upset about a particular topic, I'll just sit down and I'll write as much as I can think about on that topic. So why it might be upsetting me, any of the things behind it. So if you've had a significant loss or trauma, you can just write about that. But I would encourage you that I'm not a therapist or trained in this. So if you are having anything that would be triggering, then make sure that you are reaching out to the appropriate people who can help you walk through triggering events. But um, a couple of the different things that I like to encourage people to do is to um, do a journal prompt each day of 3 things um, that you're grateful for. Which sometimes,
Mm.
when you have suffered a really significant loss, that's really hard to come up with 3 things that you're grateful for. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I mean, I will always be grateful that I was Catherine's mom, even if for 2 days. Obviously, now because I'm 10 years out, my journey is completely different than it would have been in the very beginning. I think in the very, very beginning, in the early stages, I would have been grateful every day that Karis, our survivor, was still alive and that Karis was progressing and that I had 2 other healthy children. And, there's all of us should be able to find a couple of things that we can write down that we're grateful for. Maybe it's just, I'm glad that I woke up today. I'm grateful that the sun is still shining. I'm grateful, for whatever you could come up with, name, and that can be a powerful thing. But really, there's just it really just depends on where you are in the process. And letter writing is always a go-to because it's very, very, letters are structured. When you think about, okay, I'm going to write this letter to this person and I want to address these things, and you just write out everything that you're feeling. And there's lots of little exercises like that, just brain dumping, if nothing else, or just
Yeah.
going outside. And if you feel like you want to write but don't know what to write about, then you can follow prompts, like and they can be super easy prompts. One of my favorite ones I enjoy is just finding a picture in a magazine that you really like and making up a little story about it.
Mm.
Or looking at an image of a street a picture or anything, and describe what's happening in that picture. Those can be great, just to get the creativity going too. It doesn't have to be about sadness. It doesn't have to be about loss. You can write about anything and still get the benefit of using those creative processes.
Her dad passed, and whenever she is asked to read for a group, she declines because even after 7 years, she still gets very tearful. She cries when she reads them. So she's looking for some suggestions.
That's a hard one. If you can't, there's well, you can just practice reading it until you can read it until you don't cry. If you want to, if you really want to be doing that. The other thing is just wait until. I mean, sometimes it just takes time. 7 years, it feels like a long time for people that have never experienced a significant loss. But I mean, there's still times. This will be the 10th anniversary, and there's still times when I'm sharing about Catherine and Karis and what we went through that I still get really, really choked up about. and have a harder time. And it depends on what's going on in my life. It depends on where I'm at. It depends on who I'm talking to. But when it comes to reading, sometimes it's also about the benefit of what you can do for the group. And if you feel like you sharing that book in your own voice and in your passion for it could give something back to the people listening, then maybe that would help you move past it. If you think about how you're helping others as you read the story, I don't know if that helps or not. Sometimes it's just time. It's just a matter of time before you can read them without getting emotional.
And the tears, I think it depends on like what kind of tears you're crying. Like, is it the crying where you can't even get words out,
right,
Tina, or is it the tear that slips down the cheek? And that just shows people that you're still connected, that this meant something to you. It speaks to your relationship with your dad.
I would agree.
I don't always think tears are a bad thing. When people are in my office, they always start apologizing when they cry. I'm like, that's just emotions spilling out, and it's okay.
It's release. That's right.
They've actually did some studies where they examined the chemical or the molecular makeup of tears, and grief tears and angry tears and sad tears are all different. So there's
really,
it's pretty
That's
interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
can't finish the sentence. Okay, if you can't finish the sentence, then you're probably not ready to read it.
Not ready for the group.
Time.
Yeah. Keep reading the books to yourself and processing. Maybe doing some extra writing, like Alexa was sharing earlier. That stream of consciousness when you read a page or whatever point in that book where the emotions really start coming out. Like grab your journal and start free association, free writing right then, and see what other layer is in there that is needing some addressing.
That's a really good idea.
So you have the free association, the journaling, the gratitude.
I mean, you could write poems if that's what floats your boat. You could do a haiku, which is super short, just 3 lines. I mean, there's no magic potion about it. It's just sitting down and writing. If you need prompts to get started, there's lots and lots of places that have prompts that you can use. Journaling is great, just writing your emotions in your journal, or finding a journal that's a prompt journal that'll walk you through specific things. But
which reminds me, earlier you mentioned a journal that you're working on.
I am. Yeah, it's been in the works for 2 years, so I'm really hoping that I'll be able to finalize my thoughts. But it's meant to be a month-by-month journal with daily activities and weekly activities that just help a grieving mother. So throughout the year, you basically progress from the initial grief to someone who's a little bit further in the process to someone who's more in the healing stages. And the exercises throughout kind of reflect that journey. So in the beginning, they're more gentle and kind and shorter. And because in the beginning, you are just like brain fog. There's no long exercises, no really structured, just it's even some drawing spaces and some other activities, some breathing techniques and things like that. And then as you progress further, it includes all kinds of different things. So at the end of the month, there's a check-in to just see how you're feeling and doing, and quarterly check-ins and all of that stuff as well. So still in progress. We have a lot of work left to do, but every time I think I know exactly what I want to include in it, I learn something new or meet someone else, and I'm like, oh, I need to change that. I want to shift that a little bit. So.
Yeah. There might have to be a 2.0 version, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Oh, that's really... do you have the name of that picked out yet?
Sisterhood of Healing Hearts.
If people who are listening right now or on the replay want to kind of keep tabs on and see when that comes out, what's the best site or the best way they can keep their eyes open for that release?
They can go to sunshineafterthestorm.org. And when it comes out, I'm hoping to have it done by October for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, but we shall see.
Projects always take a different amount of time than we expect, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And this one, I just, I think with healing and things like that, like we have to let the things come to them in their right time. And I was trying to push forward to get the journal done because I was like, my poor graphic designer, like she's been hanging out waiting for me to take the next step for like 6 months. But I have had other priorities. I've had other things that have had more attention, and something's been holding me back from moving forward with it. So I'm
Hmm.
just trying to wait until it feels right to move forward. And I feel like part of it is because I hadn't learned about EFT, or I had learned about EFT, but I hadn't learned about it the way that I have now. And
Hmm.
I want to really incorporate tapping as some of the exercises in the book as well. So, things come at their right time if we allow ourselves the space and grace to have them come to us.
Yeah, that's such a good point. The healing journey takes time,
Yes.
and we do have to intentionally set aside time to engage in that process, or it will hang out waiting for us to do it.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it will keep coming back. It will
It
keep
will.
coming back. Just that if you've suffered a loss or some kind of trauma or something that you are grieving, you know, be gentle with yourself. And just because you decide, okay, I'm going to try some kind of writing to heal, like, it doesn't have to be done exactly like I said. Figure out what works for you, figure out what helps you, and just grab a pen, grab a notebook, sit down and write. It doesn't have to make sense. Nobody ever has to read it. But it can
Exactly.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, it can be very, 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 very powerful to just let your emotions come out of you, especially if you are more inclined to not talk about your emotions, like I was. I didn't really talk to people a lot, so
That internal
writing was a great
processor.
outlet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious because I've done some free association, that free form writing of just letting it flow before. Do you find that as you fill up a couple pages, like suddenly, like there's a piece that clicks, or there's an insight, like a sentence that you're like, oh, that's where that came from, or that's what that's connected to.
I don't know if I always have big breakthrough moments like that. Sometimes maybe I find myself writing about something that I didn't realize was connected in there, an old hurt, an old wound that pops up again. It clears me and it calms me,
Mm,
and that's to me more important than to some big breakthroughs. I mean, there's nothing mysterious about what happened with us, So I'm not trying to make any breakthroughs around the loss of it but I can see how other people with other different types of traumas and loss and things like that, how it could be a way that, like, when you start writing and you start seeing what's actually coming forward, you think, huh, I didn't realize that was still bothering me, or that's still becoming an issue.
well, that's cool. Yeah, I love that. The clearing and calming. It's a
Yeah,
grounding thing too.
it
Yeah.
is very much.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm so glad. Thank you for making time to come talk with us today. And
Oh, just thank you for inviting me.
oh, yeah, you're welcome. It's always fun to hear how other people process and heal, and especially using the writing, because not too many people talk about that specifically. But it's something you can do anywhere you are,
That's right.
which is very cool. So, and I'll include your links. I got several links for you, Instagram, website, things like that,
Thank
um,
you.
to share in the newsletter.
All right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Bye,
Thank you,
Tina.
everybody, for being here.
Bye.
Please have a good day.